Okay, testing. 1, 2. I'm here. Hello. Hi. Don't need that anymore. So here I am. I'm going to be here for a bit, and then I'm going to head out to go to the gym with a friend. And that should be it. But right now, there we go. That should be a decent angle. I'm here to hang out and do a little bit more of the painting. So hopefully it'll be a good painting day. Going to continue working on the Zephyrim, and then I'm going to, head out and hit things. Gonna put that up there. Okay, there we go. So let's see what we got to do. I'm actually not going to work on this guy. Thought I was going to, but I'm not going to. Oh no, my dog is barking. I can hear him upstairs. Something outside is making him mad. So this is the second lady I was working on. Is she? Yeah, no, she was the first lady I was working on. I think she turned out pretty good. I don't know if there's anything else I really want to do with her. I might have to talk to Soft Servo and see if there's any changes he wants to make to this lady, because she is incredibly silver. So he might want me to do something with the waist armor, the bodice, I guess it's called. I don't know. I suppose I will see later. But I think she is pretty much done and good to go. This is one I was working on, and a little bit sloppy. You're not working as hard on this one simply because it's a line trooper. But I think it turned out pretty okay. Once again, not sure if there's anything I really want to do with it. I think I'm going to add a little bit of dry brush there and go ahead and paint in that bit. Maybe make it so that her casing is purple. I think I'll do that. Give it a little bit of visual interest. But beyond that, I'm kind of at a loss of what else to do with this lady. Let's go ahead and shake that up. Go ahead and get some more water in my wet palette because it seems to have dried out a bit. Go. Let that settle back in. And on to the painting. Get a little bit of purple in there. Maybe do a little bit of black. These are supposed to be the easy models, but I've become so intent on my style that I automatically go back and do a little bit of shading and highlighting just because. Which is fine. Get a little bit of bone color. And then let's go ahead and get some work for her. Now I will say, one of the biggest issues I've been having, and it's been a pretty constant one, is with the brushes. So I don't know how well you can see, but this brush has really lost its point. It still has an okay one, but it used to have a much sharper point, and that's just through abuse, you know what I mean? When I first got it, it was able to come to a finer point. It had more hairs for that. But as I've used the paintbrush, the bristles have clearly kind of fallen away and fallen off of the brush, and that's left it A, with a gnarly curve on it, which is not good, and B, it's made it so it's far less fine a brush. So the brush itself can't hit as tight a point, which makes it far less useful for precision brushing. And that's been mildly annoying for me because I've kind of used it as a multi-purpose brush. And so not being able to do some of the same things that I was doing with it, given how just darn precise it was, is a little bit annoying. I have the same problem again, where things are getting kind of shaded out because of the lighting. So kind of wish that the brush would last a little longer, and I don't know what the cause of that is. Is it because I'm just too darn rough on my brushes? Is it because, brushes all wear and tear, so you gotta kind of deal with it? Or what? What am I doing wrong? Moment. I'll be right back. Something I do to speed up the process, which I think I've mentioned before, is I've got a hair dryer. So if I really want to move on, I'll go ahead and hit the model with a little bit. Whoops, that's very wet. I'll go ahead and hit the model with the hair dryer really quick, and that will kind of allow it to dry quicker. And then I can go back and hit it with highlights, hit it with a new layer much quicker. Since I apparently don't paint that wet to begin with, I don't really have much of a risk of washing out the model, which I suppose is a good thing. There we go. Now at the very least, get a purple bolter, purple casing on our bolter, sticking to the color scheme. Now let's get a little bit of paint on that skull. And maybe a little on this crown as well. There we go. There we go. I think the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and get some lighter blue on the energy blade. So I think I'm just going to dry brush that on. And to do so, I'm going to take some blue and some white. I'll just slowly add more white to the dry brush as I tighten it down around the power rod thing. Let's go ahead, put some blue on a dry palette. Get my cute little dry brush. The only unfortunate thing is I actually don't have a really good palette sponge for my dry brush, so I'm relying on using a paper towel, which I've just recently read is a no-no. You really shouldn't dry brush using a paper towel because it sucks all the moisture out of the dry brush, which is definitely a bad thing. You don't want to lose the moisture in the dry brush because that's what creates a chalky white finish on your model, is having it be incredibly dried out. But until I can get myself a better alternative, I think that's just going to have to be how it's going to be. Okay, let's get a little bit of white in there. I'm just going to mix that little bit of white in with the pre-existing blue, which unfortunately you are not going to be privy to because I don't have another camera for this. We're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to mix the white in with the blue and get it to a much brighter shade, which you can probably see now. And we're going to be a little closer to the front as we do this. Just very lightly. And actually, that's looking pretty good. And we're not going to go all the way up the blade. We're going to go a little bit to show that there is light emanating off of it. That'll be it. Now we're going to add even more white mixture. Make it even whiter. And all I'm going to hit is around the little power rod, the little power node in the brush, or in the blade. And hopefully I've made this white enough that you'll really be able to see the difference. I have definitely made this white enough that you'll be able to see the difference. And so now, with everything shaking, you'll hopefully be able to see how much brighter it is to the power node. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And there we go. Especially for what's going to end up being a display model, that's going to look fine. Oh boy, my pupper's barking about something. There must be someone on the road hanging out. It's a beautiful enough day that there's going to be people out and about. Even though it is the end of February right now. It is 5:04 p.m. and it is like 80 degrees outside Fahrenheit, which is in Virginia obnoxiously hot for this time of year. So unfortunately, my poor boy is hearing all these people outside. And I think my favorite thing is that he's not mad. He's not like, oh my god, there are intruders, there are people trying to get into the house. The reason why he's yelling is because there are people outside that he wants to meet and he wants to be friends with. But they're outside, and so he cannot meet them. And so he's just upset that they're not within petting range. Matter of fact, if you give me a second, I will be right back. I'm going to go check on him to make sure that everything is actually okay.
Okay, I'm back. Now normally it wouldn't be a problem because my wife would be here and she'd kind of be upstairs yelling, "Angus, cut it out, blah blah blah," because it is incredibly obnoxious when the dog decides it needs to yell at everyone simply because it wants attention. But unfortunately, she's not here. My wife, QB, Art by QB, has gone off to a convention down in North Carolina. It's one that her friends from college are holding, I believe. And it's a chance for her to see a bunch of people she hasn't seen. And the reason I'm not going with her is because I have work. And since this is a local, smaller scale convention, she felt comfortable just kind of going down herself. Now, if this had been a bigger one, where she would have really needed assistance, then yeah, it would have been like, hey, I really need assistance. But that didn't happen. So she's kind of going to this one by herself and going to chill out and hang out with some old friends. And I'm really excited for her. It also means that this is the first time, for her, I think, it's the first time she's going to have gone to a convention without me since we moved in together, and which was a couple years ago. And for me, or for us, this is going to be the first time since she went down to get her car, her brandy new car, that we will have been apart. Because was it last year? I don't remember if it was last year, possibly last year. She needed to get a new car, and she wanted to get a new car, like a brandy new car. It was her choice. She never really gets to choose stuff like this. So the fact that she had the money saved up, and she had the ability, she really wanted a specific car, right? And so she went down to North Carolina, found a dealer that had it, and went ahead and purchased it. But this was in the middle of the school week, so I couldn't go down with her. And she managed to get like horrific food poisoning from a McDonald's in the area, and so she kind of had to stay down there for a couple more days until she knew that she was safe to like not be within easy reach of a bathroom because of the vomiting. But since then, she has eaten next to no fast food, which I think is incredibly impressive. But that is the longest we've been apart since she moved in with me like 3 years ago. So it's gonna feel weird having the house all to myself, especially this house. We have not been apart since we moved into this house together, which I think is both cool and kind of foreboding. And it's not like we're super attached at the hip. It's just that generally when she leaves, it's to go to conventions, and I go with her because I enjoy going with her to conventions. But this year, especially, I've missed more than enough work because of a combination of illness and going to cons with her that I really didn't feel comfortable doing so for one this small. And she kind of agreed with me. So she went on to this convention by herself, and she'll be back on Sunday evening, I believe. And in the meantime, I've just got to kind of fend for myself this weekend. Which of course means she's going to come home, and I'm going to be curled up in fetal position. The house is going to be partially on fire. And when she gets back, I'm just going to look up and scream, "Where?" Oh no, I got the dog started again. He heard my scream, I guess, and then immediately started boofing. If you don't know, I have an old English bulldog that I'm pretty sure I've talked about on the channel before. He's like a regular bulldog, but the people who bred them realized that like the bulldog line was going to be completely non-viable within a couple of generations if they didn't do something about it. So they started crossbreeding with American pit bulls and American bulldogs and bull terriers and just all sorts of other far healthier proportioned versions of the bully to try and make it look a little closer to its old historical origin, right? And they had, narrower shoulders, wider hips, smaller head, longer snout, all the things that kind of make like an American bulldog look like a bulldog. And it's because like the AKC and other dog breeding clubs, I guess, they decided that there were certain features of the bulldog that they thought were viable, and those happened to be the ones that turned bulldogs into like horribly deformed caricatures like you see now, but it's also made it so they're incredibly non-viable for breeding and for most forms of living. So yeah, a boy is not one of those. He is an old English bulldog, so he's still a bulldog. Like, you can still clearly see he's like a jowly, wrinkly bulldog, but he's nowhere near as extreme as some of the ones that would, you know, win competitions for their physical traits. I think for an old English bulldog, he does have a lot of those very viable characteristics, which are not going for as extreme a look as a British bulldog. He is also a little cuddle monster who wants to be in the middle of everything, because I have trained him to love everyone and to kind of like have everyone love him. So if he can't get into a situation where he's around people, he gets very upset. He's such a spoiled little boy, and it's all my fault, and I have absolutely zero regrets for it. He's just everyone's friend, and if he's not, then that's because he hasn't met them yet. So, I love my dog. He's just very spoiled and wants to meet people. Now, I will be honest, I kind of expected this color palette to be a little more fun to paint. And while it is interesting, don't get me wrong, it was fun to kind of experiment with on the first one. I think I'm kind of over it. Like, I'm still gonna do a good job, and I'm still gonna make these look great, to the best of my ability. But it's just kind of happening now, you know? I think what I might need to do is I might need to just get out of army painting for pleasure, like, now. Because I'm finding that I'm having a lot more fun focusing on one model and making the one model look absolutely stunning, or at least stunning to the best of my ability, than I am having an entire army of models. Though at the same time, I do like building the armies. I love doing all the headcanon and thinking about, yeah, this company is this, and they're really good at this, and, you know, all of that fun stuff. Though I gotta say, my goodness, my brain just died. Nope, whatever train of thought I had is gone. I'm sorry. I got sidetracked by looking for my medals. I have a friend who's really into that. He gave all of his individual units these really cool names, and gave them all backstories to try and say why they are what the company they're in, and what their company means, and all that stuff. It's really neat. And oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff about like competitive Warhammer. And if you don't follow Warhammer, the game very much, that's fine. Quick explanation is that, like anything else that nerds kind of get into, and I don't mean nerds derivatively, I just mean people who become very obsessed with a certain subject matter, or very passionate about it. Warhammer has a competitive scene. And so that means there's like all these, this is the best way to do this, and this is the best way to do that, and these units are really good, and these units are not really good. So there is definitely a competitive meta to Warhammer. And there's tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And people have figured out good tournament lists and what you should do versus what you shouldn't do. And I suppose that's all fine and good, but like, I actually read recently that the creators of Warhammer never intended for that to happen. When they first created the game, they wanted it to be entirely narrative. They wanted you and your friends to come up with your own storylines for your units and for your armies, and what their exact role is in the 41st millennium. Millennia? I don't remember. But point is that it was supposed to be a very narratively driven game that was more about kind of crafting a story for your army than it was about having tournament winning lists, you know what I mean? And obviously, as the game got bigger and people started focusing in on it, it moved towards more of a tournament aspect. And I guess Games Workshop kind of realized the same thing that cigarette companies realized, that once you lure them in, The best business model is not to necessarily expand out, but more to expand up and have customers who are willing to shell over ridiculous amounts of money, as opposed to having a bunch of customers who are only willing to dip in casually. So they've increased, I don't necessarily want to say they've increased the prices of the game, because, but adjusted for inflation, the game has not gotten more expensive. Unfortunately, everything else has outpaced it, has become the problem. You know what I mean? But it's become to the point where Warhammer and Games Workshop has these guys who are balancing the game so that the top competitive players can have a relatively balanced game, right? And so a lot of that stuff doesn't really matter for more casual players, but it constantly shifts the rules of the game because different units get different balances, and they suddenly are doing different things. And the problem, especially with 9th edition, is it happens so rapidly that you like finish updating your codex because of the changes for your army, because you kind of have to handwrite it in if you have a codex, which used to be part of the fun, but it just happens so quickly now that you're like, okay, well, now this unit does this thing instead of what it used to do. And so now I've made a note, and now I've got to adjust to how I play that unit. Hey, Tabiko. That is true. At least they're updating it, unlike the lazy people behind chess. I mean, don't a lot of people consider chess to be like the perfect game, though? Because it is almost perfectly balanced. Of course, I don't know much about chess, so I could be speaking entirely out of my rear right there. I mean, with chess, I kind of feel like, why change perfection? But yeah, I appreciate that Games Workshop has become more militant about updating their stuff, but I think they shouldn't sell physical codexes, physical $60 books, if that's going to become their business model, because you have moments where stuff in the book is immediately outdated. And so if you go and try and play a casual game with someone, you've then got to figure out the rules of engagement for the game. It's like, oh, okay, well, like when the AdMech had their big change because the Skitarii blobs were too good, which, unfortunately, there are a ton of strange chess variants, like chess boxing. I've seen chess boxing. That terrifies me. You know, they do amateur boxing rounds, and then they do rounds of chess. And so, thankfully, that means they're not having the severe kind of head trauma that pro boxers are having, but they're still doing crazy things that are, in my opinion, pretty dangerous. But, I mean, they're trained athletes. They know what they're doing, I guess. But yeah, like the Skitarii blobs, when the Adeptus Mechanicus army manual came out a year or two ago, something that they realized very quickly was that large units of Skitarii shooting their galvanic rifles with a specific stratagem meant they were putting out incredible amounts of firepower. I think it was something like 80 shots at strength 5 or strength 4 with armor piercing 1 or 2. And it was just like, what do you do against that if you're any other infantry in the game? That's almost enough, and hitting on 3s, because for some reason Skitarii are as accurate and good at shooting as Space Marines. Which, fine, whatever. But it's like, what do you do with that? Right? That's an incredibly powerful combination of things that they should have thought of. But, so my buddy, Soft Servo, who played AdMech, was like, okay, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to have fun with it, I guess. And he tried it, and he actually wasn't too fond of it, because it put so much power into one unit, and then they were done, right? And so he didn't like it that much, and didn't try and play into it, but then they updated the codex. And they did so with like an update sheet where they were like, okay, instead of having, what the heck it was, rapid fire or assault, whatever characteristic they put on the gun at the time, they changed it to heavy, so that you got a -1 to your shooting rolls if you move. And so it severely weakened that specific stratagem, that specific way to play. And you think, okay, that's great for someone like Soft Servo who hated it in the first place. But unfortunately, the rest of the codex wasn't really strong enough to keep up. And they kept releasing like more and more. He like permanently marked it in his book because he was like, okay, they changed it. They're never gonna change it again. Why would they? I'm just gonna deal with it being like this, and I don't really care because I hate this anyway. So he changed it in his book. He wrote the permanent marker. He did all these things, and then as other codexes were released and other armies were updated, it became really clear that the Adeptus Mechanicus needed that kind of power because the way they were updated made them so weak that they were just folding like cheap cards against other armies. And so Games Workshop realized this, and in a more recent update, they undid the change. And so Skitarii blobs could be a thing again. And Soft Servo was like, well, shit. I made those changes in permanent marker a year and a half ago because I figured that they were going to be permanent. And he eventually just got so frustrated with the whole thing that he just gave up. He doesn't play Warhammer anymore. He doesn't like to play Warhammer. And anytime he has the option, he is like, no, I want to play one-page rule. It doesn't change. It's the same game, and I can actually, get comfortable with my army instead of hoping it's going to be the same in a month. Which I got. I really liked some of the things about 40k, but all the things I like about it, he hates. So it's just like, what do you do with that, right? I'm batch painting these now, by the way. I don't feel the point in putting away the dry palette with the metal on it to just take it out again after finishing a dude or a lady. So hopefully these are going to be relatively easy to batch paint. Speaking of, how are you doing? Thank you for popping in. I'm not going to be on stream for much longer, maybe another 20 minutes or so, because I'm heading to the gym actually to train with Soft Servo because we're both trying to get into better shape. I had that scare with my cholesterol and my blood pressure, and he's just in general wanted to be thinner because he has blood issues too. So I'm going to be leaving at about quarter to 6 for me. It's 5:22 right now. But how are you doing? I should sleep, but my house is cold, so I need to mind the fire a bit longer. Oh, man. That sucks. I'm sorry. Is your house only heated by the fireplace? You don't have any kind of central heating or gas heating or anything? Spent most of the day at the office? Fair enough. I've got some electric heating, but that's expensive. You're darn right it's expensive. Good lord. We have gas heating here, and the electric bill has been stupid, even though it's been winter. And to make matters worse, well, less about the electric, but the weather has been fluctuating so badly in this part of the country. And to give you an example, a couple days ago, it was like in the 50s, 50 degrees Fahrenheit about, if not a little lower. And today it was almost double that. It was 81 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm sorry that I don't know Celsius, but long story short is that it's almost summer weather here in the middle of, or at the end of February. And I have pictures on my social media of me and my wife hanging out in the snow. Like, we went to a convention up in Maryland. It was one of our first big conventions together, and it was kind of, for me, on a completely other note, it was kind of a redemption convention for me because of how incredibly heartbreaking the previous experience there had been, which I'll get into some other time. But anyway, we have pictures of us there on like the Ferris wheel on the harbor outside of the convention center, and she's wearing my windproof vest. And yeah, good gravy. So you're dealing with the same thing, huh? Yeah, she's wearing my windproof vest, and I'm wearing Under Armour heat gear, so a thermal layer, and then I'm wearing my windproof jacket, which is supposed to be good down to 15, and I'm wearing a hoodie under that. So it was that cold about 4 years ago at this time, and now it's pretty much summertime weather, which it sounds like you're dealing with as well. Okay, so that's gonna be good, I think. Nope, I gotta do the backpack. Okay, so -4 Fahrenheit, and now it's 30. Oh, so it's just cold all over the place. It's just only mildly freezing instead of absolutely freezing. That's... no thank you. I mean, oddly enough, the only time it was that cold in Virginia was right before Christmas. So we had like 2 days in December where it was frigid cold, to the point where I have a gas fireplace, and we've lived in this house now. This is going to be... we're on our 3rd year. And I'd never turned the dang thing on because, to be honest, I was scared of it. And it was so cold that I actually went ahead and relented, and we turned on the dang gas fireplace. And the other part to that is we have radiator heating. And I don't know what was going on, but the radiator heating just did not want to work in some parts of the house. So even though we had some parts that were incredibly toasty and were incredibly comfortable, we had other larger swaths of the house that were absolutely freezing. And we had no clue why. And since the house was built in like 1937, and that's how old some of the radiators are, we didn't really know how to fix it. So we didn't. We just turned on the gas fireplace, which thoroughly sold me on owning a gas fireplace. The only worry was that my cat, ever showing that she is my cat, thought it was a good idea to try and stick her nose in the gas fireplace while it was on. And thankfully, my wife caught her before she could go in there, but she had never seen one before, so she was like, "Oh my goodness, what was that?" And was really trying to shove her face into the flame. Yeah, we're quite aware. Whenever she can, she'll bundle up on one of our laps, or on our chest, or near our legs. I tend to come upstairs before I go to work to say goodbye to my wife, because she starts her day much later than I do. So I'll come upstairs and I'll see the dog has jumped up on the bed and he's laying in my spot, because I guess my spot either smells like me or it's warm or something. But then I'll see the cat either nestled like in the crook of her leg or in her butt, or maybe on her chest. But the point is that the cat really understands where our heat sources are. Though one of my favorite things, because I find it very funny, is that we have radiators in all of our bathrooms, right? And so every now and then I do a morning constitutional before I leave, just because I don't want to have to go to the bathroom at a school. And I'll come into the bathroom downstairs, and I'll just see the cat sprawled out on the radiator next to the toilet. And so I have to have an awkward moment where I'm like, "Hello, I'm going to poop." And she just kind of looks at me and stretches out. And then when I sit on the toilet, she tries to touch my butt, because she's a cat. So yeah, she is a weird one, and I blame myself. Though I'll be honest, I would have it no other way. I love my weird cat. I love my weird dog, who seems to have stopped barking. He was barking earlier because he saw people walking down the street, and he was wondering why they were out there where he could not get to them and say hi. Because he very much wanted to go outside and say hi to these people. My dog is a very, very spoiled dog who loves meeting new people. I was talking about 40K, and I don't remember why. I go into like a fugue state where I just start rambling incoherently about things, and I don't remember why. I honestly don't. I was talking about 40K. I was talking about something related to 40K. I know I was talking about how much it frustrates me that they keep updating the game too rapidly, but I don't remember what got me on that subject. And that's like the 3rd time that's happened to me today. I keep having moments where I'll talk about something and then I'll kind of zone out. And I guarantee you, if you were a student in my classroom, you'd see my eyes start going to different directions, and I would just keep ranting incoherently until the bell rang. Though actually today was kind of a fun one. No, I don't. I think especially with something like this, I hit kind of a zen mode. But my buddy Soft Servo was actually a special ed teacher. he works with students who do have things like ADHD and emotionally disturbed and that kind of thing. And I've asked him because I've wondered myself, maybe I am a I don't know what to call it, low suffering, mild to low case of it. And he went, no. Watching you work and knowing that I work with you and seeing how you behave, you don't have it. So no, I don't. Like I said, I think the big issue is just that I get kind of fixated in on what I'm doing. And while I'm still mentally aware, like if someone were to stop me and ask me a question, I'd be aware enough to be like, oh, okay, I need to do this now and reprioritize what I'm thinking about. But in this case, I was just kind of rote painting and talking to fill the dead air. And because of that, my brain... Yeah, no, I understand it. It's a lot like a lot of the other... I feel bad because I never want to call things the wrong thing or anything that would be considered denigrating, but it's like autism. Autism is on a spectrum. It's not a switch of either yes or no, and ADHD is the same way. As we're learning more and more about how the brain works, so I definitely get that I could potentially have a very mild form of it. I don't think that's the case. Like I'm not going to say that he is the end-all, be-all authority on whether or not someone has ADHD or any degree of it, but he's been working with kids for over a decade, and he's become very, very good at kind of rapid diagnosing. And like I said, we've been friends now for, golly, about 6 years, and he's told me that no, I probably don't have it. I'm not physically hyperactive, but I can retreat real deep into my thoughts and sometimes hyperfocus on things. Yeah, because that hyperactive disorder doesn't mean that you have a lot of, like, physical motion energy, right? It just means that your brain can really fixate, and that becomes where all of the energy is committed to. At least that's my understanding, and that's probably a vast oversimplification of what's actually going on. But yeah, I've had many friends, especially more recently, that suffer from some form of, or not suffer, I don't want to say that sounds bad, that have some form of ADHD. And some of them are realizing it very recently because their parents were ableist and they refused to believe it because of their ignorance. Some of them were very aware they had it and were working to treat it, or were working to manage it, or to learn how to live with it. I feel bad because I feel like I use a lot of ableist language and I'm trying not to. I come from a fairly privileged family, or at least one that was incredibly ableist, and I don't want to present that to the world. I think that that's incredibly horrible and denigrating and disrespectful. So, especially if you catch me, and anyone else on stream, if you catch me using ableist language, please stop me. Diagnosis pretty so is my autism Asperger's suspicions. Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like that especially now we're moving towards a more empowering perspective of things like ADHD and autism. So I don't want to continue to use language that makes it sound like it's a burden to bear and not just a different way that the brain is wired, because it feels like, I don't know, it feels got into my 30s before I realized. Well, I mean, most people did, because it was always, I mean, especially when you're growing up, especially when we were growing up, because I'm also in my 30s, there was a lot of ableist language around it. It's like, not like, in fact, there was a comedian who used to make jokes about it, and I used to think they were funny because I didn't know any better. But he was like, back in my day, there was no ADHD, there was none of that attention deficit disorder. Nowadays you go in because you're misbehaving and they tell your parents, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, your child has ADHD. Like, no. When I was a kid, they would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, your child is stupid. And I used to think that was funny. And now that I say it out loud, especially now that I think about it again, it's like, no, that's absolutely awful. That just means you're going undiagnosed, and the way they're going to deal with you is not going to help you at all. It's going to make things much, much worse, right? So I'm really trying to not be like that. And unfortunately, I'm doing my best to deprogram for me, what's close to 30 years of socialization and speech pattern. So there'll be times where I accidentally say things that I'm not overly fond of saying, and I'm going to do my best to recognize and correct. So, especially, I mean, like, you're saying what I said was fine, but if there is a moment where you're like, hey, Benry Paints, not cool, be careful. Like, when I was reading those Animorphs things, I always forget that you don't want to say that word. Yeah, no. I grew up in closer to a city, but I grew up around people who were very country, and who idealized the version of country that was put before them. So definitely problematic. But yeah, just don't be afraid to call me out if you think I'm out of hat. Okay. If it sounds like I'm saying something or doing something I probably shouldn't be saying or doing. That had to be weird. That had to be very strange for first exposure. But thankfully, information media has made it so much more likely that you'll be exposed to other ethnicities, other people, other cultures. I feel like that's been a major positive. I couldn't help it because I myself, I'm from Korea. I'm Asian. I was adopted, which meant I had a very strange view in the world because I basically saw myself as unofficially white, but because I was adopted by white parents. But it definitely made things weird for me in a lot of ways. I think one of the strangest things about being an adopted Asian and growing up in an ethnically white household is that it meant I was very uncomfortable, and I still am to some extent. I'm very uncomfortable around culturally and ethnically Asian groups. So like when I was in college, I joined an Asian student union because I figured, okay, well, this will give me a good chance to better understand kind of where I come from and the kind of culture that I came from and yada yada yada. And no, I just felt really comfortable. I felt like a white guy in a group full of Asians, and it felt so strange. And I was never comfortable in that group. I never felt like I belonged, which is a strange thing to talk about when painting minis. But I don't know. That's something I might want to unpack with like a psychiatrist or a therapist of some kind. But I just always found that fascinating, that I had that kind of mental block. And I still do to some extent. But I guess when you're surrounded by one culture, you grow up thinking you're a part of it, right? Especially if generally people don't tell you otherwise. But anyway, Warhammer. I know, right? A lot. It really does. I used to joke when I was in high school that I was a bad Asian because I don't do music, I don't do math, I don't know any other foreign languages. All the hallmark stereotypes of being Asian. And I used to say a lot of really dumb, offensive things when I was growing up. But thankfully, I had the privilege of having time to grow out of that and learn that those are not good behaviors. So, growth is good. But enough about, racism and xenophobia and cultural ignorance. Let's talk about 40K. Oh, man. Oh, did Nady ever get the... Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's a conversation between you two. By the way, welcome, Remnant. I didn't realize you were here. Thanks for joining me. I'm in the middle of reading The Siege of Terra, and I'm finishing up the first wall, and I definitely understand why people don't like these books, because I've read a lot of people really don't like the middling parts of The Siege of Terra, but I disagree with them. Hiya! I disagree with the people, with the judgment that I've read about some of the other Siege of Terra books, because people have said, Saturnine is great, and that's about it. The rest of them are kind of skippable or forgettable. But I've really enjoyed all of them. I really like the Solar War. Okay, fair enough. I really like the Solar War. I don't remember much about the Lost and the Damned, but I think I liked it because that's the second one. I'm almost done with the First Wall, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the First Wall because they're planting all these seeds for the later Imperium. So like the Imperial cult is starting to form. Getting some really cool interactions with like Fafnir Rand and Sigismund, and as an Imperial Fist player, it's really nice to see them get some limelight because the only Imperial Fist guys in the Heresy that I really saw got bodied every time they were on screen or on the page. I don't know. I've had a blast reading it and listening to it, and it doesn't help that Jonathan Keeble has read all of them, so there's that like vocal consistency, and he's really, really good at it. Though I will say, and I think I've mentioned it on stream before, there's definitely a whole thing in the First Wall that I'm still not really okay with, because it might be the most unintentionally racist thing, or at least culturally ignorant thing that 40K put out in the last 10 years or so. Because, I think I broke this down already. There is a detachment. There's a company or whatever that's built from a Nordafric conclave, like Hive City, right? And originally they were the ones building the tanks, but the war has progressed to the point where they have to join in. Like they need troops, and there's enough of them, so they need to go ahead and join in. And so it follows a young lady who's maybe 17, 18 at the most, and she worked on the factory line and is now going to be the banner carrier for this company, right? And it follows her journey and her company's journey from the North African conclaves, whatever, to the Himalayas where the battle's taking place. And so first of all, it's requiring Jonathan Keeble to do a very suspect North African accent to portray these characters. And secondly, as they're like first kind of getting accustomed to being in the military together, they're all marching towards a specific place because that's where they're told to muster. They start singing factory line songs, which are not very far off from like plantation slave songs. And it really all hits the wrong way. So, I guess kudos to Keeble for not making it more offensive than it needs to be, but it definitely is not Games Workshop's best moments. The Black Library could have done better with that, because that did not need to be in there. I don't need to hear a white British dude in his like late 30s, early 40s, singing made-up slave songs. At least that's how it comes across, as you know, especially being in a country where slavery was a much bigger cultural impact than in some other places. It's just like, ooh, ow. Okay. That was a bit of a rant, and I apologize. But otherwise, I'm really enjoying the book. So, I'm gonna go ahead and continue block paint or like batch painting these because it's going a whole lot quicker, and I'm not supposed to turn these ones into individual pieces of art. All I'm doing with them is helping a friend complete a painting project that he and his wife started but were not able to finish. So this is kind of my template, and this is what I'm using as my baseline, and every other one is going to dress off of that. Kind of impressed every one of them get power swords. There aren't a lot of units in 40k where all of the characters get power swords, except apparently the Zephyr. That being said, though, it's almost time for me to go. I'm going to be meeting, actually, that same friend, Soft Servo, at the gym at about 6 o'clock. It's 5:45 now, so I'm going to go ahead and clean up and kind of cut this stream a little short, because otherwise I'm going to be here forever. I'm actually not going there to get swole. I'm going there to hit things. I have a bad left shoulder, so I can't exactly lift weights. I have almost no grip strength in it, or no strength in it. But I can box, and it's just a better overall workout, I guess. But yeah, I train him how to box, and since he needs to work on his weight, and I need to work on my heart health, we're gonna go there and hit like punching bags and whatnot, and go through some drills for about an hour and a half while his daughter goes to dance class and his wife goes to a Zumba class. I have no idea how Zumba became part of our modern lexicon, but it's don't need grip strength for squats. If I don't want the bar to roll off my back, I probably do. But yeah, it's like all in my rotator cuff. The entire thing is bad, and it's all my fault. But yeah, now gonna keep learning how to hit things harder. So thanks for joining me, guys. Sorry the stream is short, and sorry that it was what the heck? That's a wife hair. Okay, I had a wife hair in my head. Sorry that it was mainly me ranting about ethnicity and the like, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the stream, and hopefully that you guys will be back. Actually, am I gonna be on stream tomorrow? I don't know. My wife is not here. She's in North Carolina going to tabling at a convention. She didn't bring me because I have work, but that means I have the house to myself until Sunday. So I might come back on stream tomorrow later in the evening. I might not. I don't know. But anyway, I'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of your days. Have a great rest of your evenings. Toby Kofi, I hope that you're able to, or Tobacco Fee, I hope you're able to get your house warmer, because being cold sucks. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. So I'll see you later. Thanks again, and bye-bye. Later.